Welcome to Blessings and Curses, a journey through Deuteronomy 28. The Assyrian Manifestation in 722 BCE, the Babylonian rule under Nebuchadnezzar in 586 BCE, and the Roman Captivity in 70 AD, bringing to light the connections in Yah's word to these momentous events. A central focus will be the transatlantic slave trade, a subject we will dissect in great detail through the lens of Deuteronomy 28. But we won't stop at history. We probe into the present. Who inhabits modern Israel? Who are today's Jews, Israelites, or Hebrews? This enlightening journey is our effort to present ourselves approved to Yah, rightfully dividing the word of truth, 2 Timothy 2:15. Let's begin today's episode.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And again, welcome to our afternoon study. As you know, we are in the Torah. We are in the book of Deuteronomy, and we have been on an exhaustive journey to make clear and to understand the prophecy of Deuteronomy 28. And we've made it clear that we want to exhaust every opportunity to see the full manifestation of the prophecy, as to not cut anything short, not cut anything off. And, obviously this is a review for some that may not have been around for the whole journey, but we looked at the captivities, the northern kingdom, the northern tribes being taken away for their disobedience to Assyria, the southern tribes being whisked away by Nebuchadnezzar, through the historical books. We've been watching the story of them being carried off to Babylon. And it's very important that we continue to match those things up with not only with the prophecy, but throughout Scripture, to see how the prophets agree, how Nehemiah and Ezra agree. And what we're going to find out, it's confirmed in the Gospels as well. So we're going to continue to look at this, but we want to start with our foundational verses in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 to remind us of what we're talking about. Because as last week, as we looked at it, the question was, okay, we're talking about Deuteronomy 28. Why are we in the book of Daniel? Well, we saw that the first captivity of Judah, they carried away the princes, the sons, as promised would happen to Hezekiah, right? That his children and children's children would be taken away. And we read how that's exactly who they went after, royalty. And we saw how Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were those chosen. We watched how they were educated in the ways of Babylon, and we looked at all of those things. What did they learn? What are some of the things that they learned? We paralleled that to still being in the Babylon system, and we even looked at universities and their curriculum throughout this country, which was baffling and to some appalling, but yet it exists. And then the idea comes, okay, well then avoid it. Yeah, you can avoid it, but the very passage that we're reading shows how in the midst of Babylon, they prevailed. In the midst of what's going on around them, the name of Yahuwah was plastered on their foreheads and plastered on their hearts, as their actions and their behavior change the mind of a king. So those things are very important as we look at where this leads to. So let's pick up first, reading our foundational verse, and then we'll pick back up where we left off in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. So if I can get a hand to help us through in, okay, Brother Aaron, if you would read Deuteronomy chapter 28, starting in verse 36 through verse 38.
28. 26 to 28, right? 26 to 28, right? 36 to
Deuteronomy
38.
28, you're going to read verses 36 through 48.
Okay. 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 Yahuwah brings you and the king who you set over you a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other mighty ones, wood and stone. Thus you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a mockery among all the peoples to which Yahuwah drives you. You take much seed out into the field, but gather little in. The locust consumes it. You plant vineyards and shall labor, but you neither drink of the wine nor gather, for the worm eats it. You have olive trees in all your border, but do not anoint with oil, your olives drop off. You bring forth sons and daughters, but they are not with you, for they go into captivity. Locusts possess all your trees and the fruit of your ground. The sojourner who is among you rises higher and higher above you, but you come down lower and lower. He lends to you, but you do not lend to him. He is the head, and you are the tail. And all these curses shall come upon you, and they shall pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, to guard his commandments and his laws which he has commanded you. And they shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and on your seed forever, because you did not serve Yahuwah your Elohim with joy and gladness. Depart for all the plenty. You shall serve your enemies, whom Yahuwah sends against you, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in need of all. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Brother Aaron, and very vivid, a very visual picture drawn, very graphic. And we read those exact things in the Chronicles, in the Kings, right? In Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, in Isaiah, Nehemiah. We saw those things pan out, excuse me, just as Yahuwah said it would. That would be prophetical, to first give a warning to the people that are his and say, if you do these things, this will happen. And that changed from the passage we just read to, when you do these things, or because you've done this thing, this is exactly what is going to happen to you for your disobedience, for your turning away from me, for you thirsting and hungering after idolatry, after idols, after the ways of the world. And we saw how in that first captivity, which we're looking at now, the first ones drawn away were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And we saw how they stood out, right? We saw how in the midst of what they were in Babylon, the birthplace of debauchery, the birthplace of all the things wrong that we see now in this world, this system. And we're going to talk more about that as we continue, in still being that system that controls these things. So when we looked at those four young men, we talked about graphically what would more than likely happen to them physically, where they were placed, what they had to deal with, the knowledge that was inserted into them, indoctrinated into them. They weren't just taught; they were trying to indoctrinate them to to change the ways of their mind, the way they thought, the way they processed things, the way they worshipped, even. But these four men, as we looked at last week, said, whatever you're selling, whatever's on the menu, it's not for me. We're going to serve Yahuwah, plain and simple. Daniel means Elohim is my judge. Hananiah means Yah has been gracious. Mishael means who is what Elohim is, or who is like Elohim. Azariah means Yah has helped. And we phrase that together to say Elohim is judge, but he is gracious. Who is like Yah, because Yah has helped, Yah has delivered, Yah has saved us. And we saw Nebuchadnezzar change their names to Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the meanings of those names changed as well. And we don't need to go back through that. But the orientation of these young men, the way they were trying to infiltrate them, didn't stick, because they remembered Josiah, the last good king of Israel. They remembered the feasts, the great celebrations. They remembered learning about Yahuwah and his word, and they stuck to it, and they trusted in him. And because of that, they were put in a special place in the king's court. And we're going to see how that placement makes sense as to where they are presently, where they are at that time. And as we move forward, how the favor helped change the mind of a king, change the mind of actually two kings eventually. And then Israel was released or set free by the king of Persia. So we'll get into that later on down the road. But today we want to look at Nebuchadnezzar's dream, because I believe, and as you see, as we go through, this dream sets the course of history. Like this is literally historically relevant. It shows exactly what was going to happen, and we're going to point at things as we go forward in the revelation of those exact things. And we see how the manifestation is connected to this dream. So this is why we're here. This is why we're in Daniel. This is why it makes sense to go through this, to understand exactly what Yah was saying to Israel and what he's saying to us as well. So we'll pick up in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. And I'm not going to cover a large portion, but I do want to make sure that we get a full understanding, and then we'll go into the revelation or the explanation of the dream next time we're together, because I do want to spend a little bit of time today just looking at some things. So if I can get a reader, we'll get rolling. Brother Michael, if you would read Daniel chapter 2 from verse 1, stop at verse 14. Daniel chapter 2, verse 1, stop at verse 14.
Copy. Just so everyone knows, so I'm using the King James Version because I'm in my concordance app. So, and in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, Lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And a decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon.
Stop there, Mike. Stop there. Stop at 14. Praise God. So what do you see there? What stands out to you?
Well, obviously I get reminiscent of Joseph, but when I see this, I see a lot of just wordplay from these guys. They're begging for the time. You tell us the dream, then we can make something up. And we see that all the time nowadays, the way people misinterpret scripture, the way people misinterpret and misrepresent things like, science, and the way it just speaking in circles and not getting to the point, and not being able to get to the point because they're trying to do it in their own strength and power, because they don't have Yahuwah, they don't know Yahuwah, they don't know Yah to be able to go to him and have him reveal things, and none of them were chosen by him to have anything revealed to. So it's just like what goes on nowadays, man. It's a whole bunch of wordplay and speaking in circles. Praise Yah.
Yeah. Yeah, part of it was the maneuvering, which we'll talk about a bit more. And some of it was the reality that this was a supernatural interpretation needed that they didn't possess. So we'll talk about that more. But I would like to, before we start digging in, because we're going to dig in, is there anyone else that would like to add anything to the reading? I'm sure you guys have thoughts. Sister Felicia?
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, what I
Shabbat
got
shalom.
out of that was that the king didn't even trust him. He just didn't trust him. So I think this is not the first time that he had to deal with their lies and deception. So he did not trust them, that he had to say, tell me what I dreamed first before you interpret it. And that was it. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, they were ear ticklers. They were appeasing to the king. They were, there for a purpose, but at the same time, I think he was also calling them out to say, you are supposed to be the seers. Tell me what you see. Let me know what's going on. And it was a fear for him, and we'll talk about that a little more, because he was a conqueror. And you know, all throughout history, the conquerors are very often perplexed and deeply concerned about the future of their kingdom and rule. You know, some of the kingdom movies you'll see, you know, they want to know. They want to know what's coming forth. They want to know, you know, it's said that Alexander the Great read Daniel's prophecies in order to maneuver, you know, through his conquests. And with his victories, you can see how that could be possibly true. But they want to know. They're narcissists. They rule. They're dominant, and they want it to stay that way. So they're concerned about what's next. So this dream, you know, it says it troubled him. It's much more than that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I want to continue to get your thoughts before we dig in. Vic and Cynthia.
Praise him. Maybe Sister Felicia answered my question. Because in verse 12, my question was going to be, why destroy all of the wise men of Babylon? And is it because of what Sister Felicia said, that he didn't trust these wise men?
Well, that was a rash and harsh reaction. But in his mind, he had to be thinking, then you're worth nothing to me then. If you can't tell me what you're supposed to be able to tell me, be gone with you, or literally off with your head. You know, but as we're gonna see, even Daniel was like, yo, that's not the right reaction here. Why? You know, he's gonna ask that question. So but yeah, definitely I want to jump ahead of myself. But yeah, that's a good question. You know, why kill them off? Why kill everyone? Franz and Caleb.
Shabbat Shalom. Something that just in the past when I had read this, something that jumped out is like in movies, for instance, in cinema, or even in television series, there's always like not always, but sometimes there's foreshadowing where, you know, you hear somebody say something like, surely nothing could go wrong, cut the scene, next scene is something going wrong. Mm-hmm. So in this case, like I read it and I see it says, there is no one on earth who was able to reveal the matter of the sovereign, because no sovereign, master, or ruler has ever asked a matter like this of any magician or astrologer or kasdim. And the matter that sovereign is asking is difficult, and there is no other who is able to reveal it to the sovereign except the Elohai, whose dwelling is not with flesh. And when I read it in the past, I was thinking this is foreshadowing, because there will be someone who will reveal that. But now I'm reading it again, and they were right, because it was not Daniel that came up with this dream. It was the Most High who gave him the vision. So they were right. They were wise men in that regard, because they spoke truly. And it's just interesting how both can be true. There's a foreshadowing that someone will do that. But even with that being said, in the scriptures, it reminds us that it's Yah who did it and not Daniel. It is Yah who does all these things.
Absolutely. They are spot on. But I also think there's maneuvering there, as we're going to see revealed as we continue to go through with the so-called wise men and Nebuchadnezzar. We'll talk about that more. Good point, brother. Brother Al. Where did he go? Did we lose him? All right, I don't see.
Was it AL?
Oh, I see it. There you go. Go ahead, brother Al.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I think what Franz just kind of touched on the points because I had a feeling that it was that had put that because it's not something he had requested for before. If not, they will all the wise men will have been dead already. So it's something he just requested for, and so I believe that Yah had kind of or the question rather is, do you believe it was Yah that put that restriction or put it in his heart to put that restriction? Like, tell me the dream, tell me the interpretation, because the wise men were not able to, they didn't have such powers, right? There's some stuff that I'm sure the wise men could be able to do. There's a limitation to what they can do or what they can manipulate. But this was above their reach. So, that restriction was placed so that it is only the Most High that can reveal it, that can first give it, then reveal it. So at the end of the day, I don't know. So the question is, do you think that probably it was the Most High that first put it in his heart to make, to put such restriction? Praise Yah.
Praise Yah. So, yeah, Yahuwah is controlling the chessboard here. These are maneuvers here. This is purposefully to position his young men in a place of influence, because even in the midst of this pagan Babylonian mindset society, Yahuwah still wants his name to be heard. Yahuwah still wants his ways to be seen. Yahuwah is still looking for those who are turning towards him that he might save and redirect their life. So this is absolutely a maneuver. This is absolutely a chess move, orchestrated by Yah, tearing down, just as he's done in the past, like with Pharaoh, tear down everything he believed in by every plague being directly connected to the false Elohims that they trusted in, right? Here now, these wise men, unable to go to what they believe in, what they're used to grabbing hold to even get Nebuchadnezzar to the point of saying, I don't even want to hear your lies, so, and to expose, them as not being able to fit the classification that they rest in, so we'll look at that more. But absolutely, brother, that's a good point. Good question, and you answered your own question, Sister Naomi.
Shabbat Shalom, Elder Rod and family. I just want to bring up a point in Jeremiah 27, excuse me, 6. Yahuwah calls Nebuchadnezzar my servant.
Mm-hmm.
So just that alone tells me that he has power over him. And he's giving him things to ask, giving him things to even during Daniel's time with Nebuchadnezzar, it was still Yahuwah conducting all of these transactions. So that's all I want.
Absolutely.
Shabbat shalom.
Absolutely. Yet Nebuchadnezzar was being directed by Yah to chastise, to correct Judah, to correct Israel as a whole, to turn back to him by their chastening and by, the captivity, and use it to show that I'm strong and mighty and I still got you in the midst of what you're going through. And I'm going to show all of those around you who I am and what's real and what's not. In the midst of all of these things, in the midst of the indoctrination with what they were fed, being taught, none of it prevailed for those that truly trusted in him, and they became men in position of influence. Sister Lisa Z, Zapata.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Excuse my voice, I'm getting over a cold. So I have a couple comments
Mhm.
and verses and a question at the end. So whenever people talk about dreams, I always think of this verse in Genesis 48 in regards to when Joseph was speaking to the baker and the wine bearer,
Right.
where he says, and they said to him, we each have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to Elohim. So I always like to bring that out because to me that just solidifies that a true interpretation would come from the Father. And so I just love that verse. So I just wanted to share that in case no one's ever read it. But
Yeah.
on another note, this other verse in Job 33:15-18, it says, he speaks in dreams and visions of the night when deep sleep falls on people as they lie in their beds. He whispers in their ears and terrifies them with warnings. He makes them turn from doing wrong. He keeps them from pride. And I also love that as well because I feel like, you can go back and read this in context. I think it's one of the friends of Job's.
Yeah.
It's not Job himself saying this. So I guess that's a question in itself, like to what extent do we take all of those verses as truth? Because some of the things that they said to Job were like not nice, I guess, I've heard they were rebuked for that. But I still feel like this verse here is true because he does bring warnings. And um I was told like if it's a dream that is repeated, then it's pretty much a warning. And so I don't know if you want to comment on that, but here's my question verse. So I'm just sharing those in regards to how Yahuwah speaks to people in dreams, and true interpretation belongs to him only. So here's my last verse I want to share. And I have a question about this one. I recently shared this whole in Jeremiah 29:4, all the way down to 29:9. I shared this verse with a sister recently, and what caught my eye, and I've never caught this before, was that Jeremiah 29, and this is when they're in Babylon, right? He's like Jeremiah's letting them know, like, he's giving them prophecy about what will happen. But 29:8, it says, for thus said Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners who are in your midst deceive you, neither listen to them to the dreams which you are dreaming, for they are prophesying falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares Yahuwah. So here's my question. Is he saying that the dreams that people are dreaming can be false and prophesy? He's saying those dreams are prophesying to you. They are false. Like, I haven't sent those dreams. So that's my question in regards to dreams. Since we're on the topic of dreams, and I know we're talking about Daniel, but he's obviously going to these magicians and diviners and seeking their interpretation, which, is obviously going to be false no matter what, or mixed with true and falseness, how the enemy works. But what do you think about this verse specifically?
Yeah.
Like,
So Jeremiah is going to bring truth to the reality of who they're leaning on. The diviners, remember, these men were against Yah. So he wanted to expose them as not being true prophets, not being true to understanding the prophecies or the interpretation of the dreams, and not to listen to them because they weren't his men. They weren't walking his way. The same thing is happening here when Nebuchadnezzar calls his wise, so-called wise men, and they are unable. The purpose is to show that only Yah reveals it. So if you're not walking with Yah, then there is nothing that you will be able to interpret accurately. Thus the contrast when Daniel shows up, and we're going to see the contrast between the men who were crying out to Nebuchadnezzar saying, no one can figure these things out, to Daniel, who was in captivity, of the sons of Israel, who was a man of Yahuwah, who was then able to do those things. So dreams are definitely part of the way Yah speaks and the way he warns. And you know, I'm even going to talk. I'm not a dreamer, but when we start getting into this, I'm going to share something with you guys that happened to me recently. Two dreams, and I always say, like, I hear people talking about dreams, and I believe the sincerity. I believe when they say, Yah has got, depending on who they are. If I'm listening to somebody, discernment kind of can guide you. But ultimately, if you're saying you're a person of Yah, I want to trust that what you're saying is true, until proven otherwise. But I'm not someone that personally has had a lot of dreams that need to be interpreted or have an answer to, until recently. One, where I clearly saw where the dream came from, and two, where Yah put something in me and revealed it through something else or through somebody else, because it was very similar, and I'll explain a little later. But yeah, let's get into this a little bit. I hope that answers you, Lisa. Did that answer your question?
I feel like the verse, it did. Yes, praise Yah, hallelujah for his truth.
Mhm.
He is the only way, the only truth. So I know that, yes, praise Yahuwah for that. But did you read it? Because I'm like, look, it says, neither the dreams which you are dreaming, for they are prophesying falsely to you in my name. I feel like he's saying the dream itself is prophesying, because people could say, oh, I had this dream, and it could be not even from Yahuwah. And so that's
Right.
why I never caught that. So I know you said it was the diviners and false prophets interpreting it, but I almost feel like this is saying the dream itself is prophesying falsely to that person that is dreaming it. So I don't know, maybe I'm not reading it right, but I thought that was, what do you think about that? Is it the dream? Is this verse saying it's the dream, or it's the false prophet's interpretation that is false?
With us says Yahuwah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, do not let the prophets or your diviners who are in your midst deceive you. All right. So these are men that are of deception. These are men that are against Yah. Nor listen to your dreams, which you cause to be dreamed, for they prophesy falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them. So there are dreams that you have that are, and that this is a perfect example of what I'm going to share, that are caused by something that happened, something that was said to you, what you were watching on TV, something you ate too late, that is not of Yah. It's just a dream. And to go and take these dreams to these false prophets is not going to serve you in any way, because they're prophesying deceits, they're prophesying lies. So I'll give you a perfect example of that in a second. So absolutely, the dreams and the prophecies are not accurate. Well, let's get back to Daniel. Praise Yah. And Jim. Go ahead.
I'm volunteering to read, but I had a quick comment. I learned recently, well, I didn't believe that everyone dreamed, but I learned that everyone dreams, just not everyone remembers their dreams.
Right.
So some people very regularly remember what they dream, and others of us wake up and have no clue what we dreamt.
Absolutely, that's true. A lot of times, the dreams we remember are the last thing we were thinking about before we wake up. But you can have several dreams throughout the night. But I believe when Yah wants you to remember something or see something, He can literally wake you up to do something. We're going to see how that makes sense. So stay with me. All right, so verse 1, he says, now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. So a lot of people get confused by that because they see in chapter 1, the third year of Jehoiakim, and they think that Nebuchadnezzar was king then, and then you see that Daniel and his the other four boys went through 3 years of training, but Nebuchadnezzar wasn't actually king when they were brought captive. Remember, he was away fighting, right? Remember, he was fighting. His father died, and then he goes and he brings the last group from Judah into captivity into Babylon. He doesn't become king. Well, he's king while he's there, but he doesn't, ceremonially become king until he comes back to Babylon, and that's why it's 2 years marked here. So second year, and I hope that makes sense. Now, the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. So we see this word troubled, and it can mean troubled, but it's the word pa'am in the or pa'am in the Hebrew, and it means to impel. And what that means is to urge or to drive someone to do something. You immediately become anxious. Ulcers are connected to impelling, but you're driven to do something because of this dream that you had, right? He was driven to do something. So with that in mind, let's talk about the couple dreams that I had, and both of them were within the span of 2 weeks. One has to do with Yah clearly, as he revealed it. One has nothing to do with Yah. It's just a conversation I was having that brought back memories, and I dreamed about it. And it was a weird one. So, and I didn't even share this with you, and I just had this dream the other night. But the first dream happened 2 weeks ago. And I shared this with the couple that I had, because the dream, I don't remember the dream. I just woke up, right? And I tried to go back, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I was compelled to pray for this couple. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I immediately did that. And then that morning I reached out to them, and I told them what was on my heart because of that prayer, for them to take action in this way. And when I told them, they got back to me and said at that same time, they were in prayer that same night. So it was revealed, there was a purpose for me waking up and praying for them at that time, and that something like that in that way. I mean, I get unctions, I get, a discernment about things, but in the way of dreams, that had never happened to me before. So it was gratifying, and I think Yah wanted me to see how he can also speak, because I read it, I see it, but it never happened to me that way. And that was like 2 weeks ago. And I've always shared that. Anytime we talked about dreams, I've always shared that. So then on Wednesday, it was towards the end of the day, I was talking with a couple of my colleagues, and then we have this new guy who just joined the company, and he's actually from Philly. So he was first we were just having general talk about Philly that anybody that could know, but then he started talking about neighborhoods and places, really pulling out like, oh, this guy knows Philly, right? So we're talking about all these kinds of things, and he was like, well, where were you from? I was like 59th Street, and then we were talking about all. He said, yeah, I remember them dudes around 59th Street, So we started talking about all these things. So it really brought out some memories, and like I was never in a gang per se, but I hung with a group of guys, and we went through a period, in my late teenage years, where we used to get in disputes, fist fights, all of those things that you could go through in the inner city with another group of guys from a close neighborhood. So I didn't think anything of it. I just, just the conversation brought up a lot of memories. So that night, I had a dream that I'm in this building and I see all the guys that I was talking about. I see them in this room, and they're like, first they're cool, and then they invite me in, and then it's like a setup, and they're trying to get me, So then I start running, but then I'm floating, like I'm floating away from them, and I'm getting away from. But everywhere I went, they ended up being, and this just went on and on and on until either I woke up or got away. I can't remember, but that was a direct result of the conversation I had, because I didn't think about those. I haven't thought about those guys in 20, 30 years. So those are the two elements of dreams. One, having absolutely nothing to do with Yah, that I need to go get interpreted. And the other, where Yah revealed that he woke me up to pray for this couple to be able to speak into their heart, to do something. It impelled me to do something so that they might be encouraged or they might be edified. And they were, because they told me. So, Lisa, those are the two opposite sides, one coming from a conversation that reminded me of some things from my past, and these guys that I don't even see anymore being in my dream. Like I never hung with these guys. I knew who they were, and they're in my dream, because of the conversation about Philly. So just, the realm of, or the plethora of ideas that can come into your mind, that can cause you to then subconsciously think about it while you're sleeping, versus the visions, that Yah gives us at night, as you read in Job. So very different things, and both things occur. And I think that's what Jeremiah is also speaking to. But this dream troubled him. It urged him to do something, right? And he couldn't sleep. So when you think about it, when you think about what I talked about in the beginning about these world leaders and their propensity to always need June sent me a note. So they always need to be in power and to know that to understand what their future is going to be. How long will they be in power, right? But there is a urge, for him, a compelling that I need to find out what this is about. And I'm sure some of you have had those type of experiences where, you're urged to do something. It could be, like I said before, discernment. It could be an unction, or it can be an actual dream that causes an action in you, causes you to seek from Yah. What does this mean? Is this for nothing, or is it, what is it? Is it a thought I was having? What is it? So this is what happened to him. So he goes to verse 2. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians. The magicians here are the cartoon or the charton. These are not, abracadabra. These are engravers. These are writers. A lot of these men dealt with sacred writings of the Babylonians. So they're known to have knowledge. These were one of the people he went to, the astrologers he calls. And these were conjurers. These were necromancers, those that enchant the dead, right? These aren't just, the stars. Like these are enchanters. He went to sorcerers. These delve in witchcraft, potions, drugs. In the Greek, we call it pharmakia, right? Those hallucinogens that cause you to go outside of your mind, that open gateways. They enchant. This is who he's going to. And the Chaldeans. Remember, the Chaldeans were from southern Babylon, and they were heavily involved in overtaking Assyria. So these were wise priestly men. They were in the wise priestly men class, and they also studied the stars to guide them. So this is who they went to. When we looked at this last week, we saw that they were heavily involved in indulging in science, interpretation of omens, communicating through astrology, as well as flight patterns of birds, and even the explanation of the organs, and of course, engineering and math. So this was all a part of who they were. So this group of people he pulled together were supposed to be the most learned group of all of Babylon that will be able to interpret this supernatural dream that he had, this dream that he had that required supernatural interpretation that they weren't able to provide. Peyton.
Shalom.
Shalom, bro.
How you doing?
Good.
You said in the verse 2 that you said to call the magicians. You said that they wasn't like hocus pocus magicians, but like more like writers.
They were engravers. So these were the men that dealt with sacred writings of Babylonian. So if you look up that word magician used in that verse, that's what it's going to tell you. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes
okay.
we read the words in English and we just run with what they are, but we gotta go behind the words to make sure that the interpretation is fits what was going on, fits what they were doing. So I don't know why they didn't use a different word, but the magician would not be accurate to what these men were in reference to understanding what this dream was. So they would understand the sacred writings of Babylon and the things that were written to understand from their false gods, from their idols, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Let me see. And you'll see the same thing in Exodus. It says, but Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. So the magicians of Egypt, they also did like manner with their enchantments, right? Trying to duplicate what Yahuwah was doing through Aaron. So you always see the false rise up, and then you'll have, a literal juxtaposition of the good and the evil. Because what Daniel is called to do is going to go right beside what these so-called wise men are doing. So verse 3, it says, and the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit, my ruach, is anxious to know, right? Anxious, right? It's impelling him, it's causing him to take action, causing him to seek guidance, causing him to seek interpretation of what this means, anxious to know the dream, right? And it says in verse 4, it says, then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. So just so you guys understand, the Bible is most people think it's just two languages, just Hebrew and the Greek, but there's a large, chunk of Daniel, Ezra, Jeremiah, and even the Gospels we're going to see, because we're going to look at a couple passages, so I'm going to need a couple readers. But this particular verse starts Chaldean, where it says, then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, which was, the political language. This was a language of business. This was a proper form of English that, of Aramaic that they all in Babylon would understand clearly. So we have, in the context of the world, we have to look at how from this verse, chapter 2, verse 4, all the way until chapter 7, verse 28, speaks of world history. Speaks of things that we can line up, even in the Babylonian history books. All of these things in this dream that are going to be revealed are what sets the course for us to understand Babylon, Persia, Neo-Persia, the Roman Empire, and beyond. All of these things happen in this chapter, and so sets the course of the same route that we have to take to understand what's in Deuteronomy chapter 28. So let's look at some examples of Aramaic, in the Bible. So, June, you wanted to read next. If you can turn to Genesis chapter 31, and you're going to read chapter 31, verse 45 through 49. Lydia, if you would turn to Jeremiah chapter 10, you're going to read verse 11. Brother Al, if you would turn to Ezra. Oh, Ezra, no, Ezra, that's too much to read. Just know that there's a lot of Aramaic in Ezra. We're not going to read all of that. But you can turn to Matthew 27, 46. Matthew 27, 46. Brother Aaron, you can turn to Romans 14. I'm sorry, Romans 8, verse 15. All right. So June, you'll start off in Genesis 31, read 45 through 49.
All right, I'm reading from the ISR. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a standing column. And Jacob said to his brothers, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. And Laban called it Yagar Sahadutha,
Yeah.
but Jacob called it Galad. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why its name was called Galad. Also Mizpah, because he said, let Yahuwah watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight.
Yeah, mitzvah actually means observing post or watching post, where you will observe to see, right? So let Yahuwah be in this place as I'm watching. But the the words Jagar Sahadutha, which is a heap of witness, that's actually Aramaic, right? So we see the picture of the Aramaic in Genesis. Sister Lydia, you're reading Jeremiah 10:11.
Okay, Jeremiah 10, verse 11 from the Sefer. Thus shall ye say unto them, The Elohim that have not made the heavens and the earth, even they shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. Did you hear me?
Yes. So that's in
Okay.
Aramaic. He says that Jeremiah speaks to them in Aramaic, saying, these are not true Elohims, right? So he's speaking in Aramaic there. Who's next? Al? No, Aaron was next, right? No, Al was next. Al, you're reading Matthew 27:46. Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
Okay. Matthew 27:46. And about the ninth hour, Yahushua cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama azavatani. That is to say, my El, why have you forsaken me?
Eli, lama sabachthani is Aramaic. Yahusha said from the tree, my Elohim, why have you forsaken me? Right? So we see these different instances, and something that we all use. I think a lot of people just assumed it was Hebrew. Aaron, if you could read Romans 8, 15.
For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father.
Abba is Aramaic. It's not Greek, right? It's not Hebrew. It's Aramaic. So all these little spots we see, it's also in Mark 14:36, Galatians 4 verse 6. So, and it's many other places. It's also in the book of Acts, and in several passages in Ezra, but they're too chunky to read now. But just wanted to show you guys that this does exist, and when he enters it, he tells you they started to speak in Aramaic, and this is what he says from this 4 all the way to 728 is Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. Brother Payton.
I'm just trying to understand, like, these people are Hebrew and speak Hebrew.
No,
Why
these people are Babylonians. Chaldeans. They're not Hebrew. Hebrews are in captivity.
Gotcha.
Even Babylon,
Gotcha.
where they speak it. Yep.
Okay. All right. Miscontext. Okay, cool.
No problem. Praise Yah. So we see clearly here the different instances throughout Scripture, and I would say that, when you see these different words and try to really understand what they are, try to really understand what they're saying. Sometimes the revelation of what things mean, we can read it on a page, but to really dig into, okay, how do I understand this, is to go behind the words. A whole nother door opens up for our understanding, and this is what he means to say, study to show yourself approved. This is what he means when the Bereans were in Thessalonica and they were listening and they heard the word that the disciples and Paul was and Silas were teaching them, and they said, okay, sounds good, but let me go see if what you're saying is true, and I'm gonna study it to see if these things are so. This is what it means to listen to me, Brother Jadiel, Brother Rick, and to investigate and to not take our word for it. I mean, trust that Yah has put us here to reveal some of these things and to teach some of these things, but you got to know it for yourself. Yah is looking for all of those whose hearts are bent and turned and ears hear and do what he tells them to do. You can't say, Brother Rod told me to do it. You gotta know that what Brother Rod is in scripture. And the interpretation of what he's saying is accurate. And if you find something that I say that's not accurate, let me know. Don't let me go on teaching it. We do that every week. We go through what's being said. We go through what we're reading, and we try our best by the will of Yah, by the Ruach, to understand clearly. Like there's no use in doing or being a part of anything that you don't understand. Obviously, in the beginning, you won't understand everything. I don't even understand everything, but I think that there should be a striving to, and not a resting, or we should never be complacent with what we think we know. Our understandings change all the time, specifically as we reason together, as the scripture says. That's what they were doing. They were looking at it and say, yo, bro, you said this, but it don't look like that here, because that's not what that word means. You know what I mean? Let's look at it. All right, let's look at it. Oh, you know what? I never saw that. You know what? You're right. Right? That's how you reason. That's how you look at things. It doesn't have to be an argument because you don't agree with what I say. Let's talk about it. Right? This is what Yah wants all of his children to do. This is why we study. This is why we open up the book and open up the mic, so that we're not just talking heads, and then yay, amen, and then going home. No, we are going to talk about, we're going to explain, we are going to understand. So when we walk out the door, or in our case, when you turn off your computer, you have knowledge of the way then that you are now supposed to live and have your being, right? So praise Yah for his word. So we see that there is trouble, in Nebuchadnezzar. He's got to know. And they answer him. They said, what is this? What is this talking about? What does this dream mean? So all of the kings, all of the wise men come to him, verse 4, and they say, "O king, live forever." You know what I mean? They're trying to make him feel, put him back up on the pedestal. But they're also, what we're going to find out is the stalling. He's going to say, "Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation." But he knows that there needs to be more than that. So this is how he answers it. He says, "The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. I already told you what I want you to do. I don't want to hear no foolishness. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap." And we see that same thing in Ezra, spoke of an ash heap, tear down. It says, Ezra, I'm at chapter 6, says, "Also, I issue a decree that whoever alters this edict, let a timber be pulled from his house and erected, and let him be hanged on it, and let his house be made a refuse heap because of this." So we see this heap being a sure declaration of destruction. I'm going to literally tear you to pieces. Babylonian culture, they would cut limbs off, chop you up into pieces, burn you, right? And then he says, "However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream, and it's just an interpretations. Like, stop stalling, stop trying to, and this is exactly, he's going to say this. Stop stalling. I mean, it says it differently down here. We're going to read it. Stop stalling. You know, I already said what I said. Like, you're going to tell me, not just that, you're going to tell me what my dream was. You're going to tell me, I'm not telling you anything. You're going to tell me what my dream was. And if you can't, this is your outcome. I'm literally going to destroy you, right? So what do they say? They answer again. Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation. Like, how are we going to tell you what the dream was? Like, you tell us what the dream was, and we'll interpret it. Which is a rational, question. Like, we can interpret some things, but knowing what you dreamed, and that's kind of, and he knows by his unction, he knows by what's impelling him, the ulcer that's in him is causing him to say, I gotta know what this means. And there's a certain way that I want it known. I want you to tell me what the dream was, and I want you to tell me what the dream means. Then the king answered and said, I know for certain that you would gain time, right? So they're scrambling, they're stammering, they're calling him, O king, the great and mighty one. And they're also kind of being like, that's not how it works. You got to tell us the dream first, and then we interpret it. He tells them, you're buying time. He said, I know for certain that you would gain time. You're stalling, right? Because you see that my decision is firm. Like, that if you can't answer it, what's going to happen to you is real. This is what's going to happen. But he's like, if you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know you can give me its interpretation. So basically, you guys are know-it-alls. You guys interpret things. You guys write things. You give us our spiritual direction. Okay, then tell me these things. But tell me supernaturally, because that's what you claim to be doing. All of these things, all of these potions, all of this enchanting. This is supposed to be the spiritual way that we roll. So find out, or I'm cutting your head off, right? So we see the rationale from the men, right, who know that they can't do these things, but we also see the rationale from the king. Like, this is what you say that you do, but you can't do it. So you're going to all come together and agree to lie to me. That's why I want you to tell me not just the interpretation. I want you to tell me what it means. And look what it says in verse 10. It says, the Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, master, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, any astrologer, or any Chaldean. Verse 11, it is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not flesh. So we see clearly here, Al talked about earlier, is this orchestrated by Yah? Yeah. Yah's got the chessboard, because what does this do? He removes the false, and what does he enter in? He's going to enter in, and this is going to set the stage for Daniel. right? Set the stage for Daniel. And look what it says. It says, verse 12, for this reason, the king was very angry, furious, and he gave the command to destroy. See that heap, cut up means to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. So not only does this cause the king to lose his mind, not only was this penalty excessive and extreme, and we know it's excessive and extreme because even Daniel says it in the next verses. So we're going to read through that, and then we're going to close out for the day. But we see that there is no peace here. This king has everything, all the riches of the world, the majority of the kingdoms of the world he controls, but he's still not satisfied. He's not satisfied. Nothing can contain him, and he has this troubling dream, this piercing dream that disrupts his rule, that changes what might be his outcome, and he wants to know, he wants to see what it means to him. So let's continue on. We'll read a few more verses and talk through them, and then we'll stop there and pick back up next time. So, Lydia got her hand up already. Or is that to read, or is that for a question?
It's to read.
Okay. All right. She beat you to it, Steph. So let's look at verse 14. Stop at 24. So read 14 through 23.
Okay. 14 to 23. Okay. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the chief of the sovereign's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise ones of Babel. He answered and said to Arioch, the sovereign's officer, why is the decree from the sovereign so urgent? So Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. And Daniel went in and asked the sovereign to give him time, and he would show the sovereign the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, to seek compassion from the Allah of the heavens concerning the secret, so that Daniel and his companions should not perish with the rest of the wise ones of Babel. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in the night vision, and Daniel blessed the Allah of the heavens. Daniel responded and said, blessed be the name of Allah forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removes sovereigns and raises up sovereigns. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who possess understanding. He reveals deep and secret matters. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O Allah of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the sovereign's matter.
Great job. What stands out there?
That Yahuwah knows everything, and only he is able to reveal the secrets to those of us that ask for it and are worthy.
Great job. That's a great point. There's so much here that stands out. So we'll look at some of it. But one of the first things that I see, and you guys can raise your hands as you see things too as well. Look what he says. He says, then the counsel of wisdom excuse me, then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, right? So he's the chief executioner, this Arioch, right? Who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. And this is what Daniel said. He said to Antioch, the king's captain, why is this decree from the king so urgent? Right? So that word urgent means urgent, but it also means rude insolence or disrespectful and harsh. So he's going over the top because they can't tell him this dream, meaning that it means something to him that they don't understand. So he says, then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So he lets Daniel know what's going on or why the king is acting the way he's acting. So we see that harsh treatment, just like we talked about in verse 13, the penalty was excessive and extreme. Daniel tells us, why is he giving such an extreme and harsh and excessive, demand or command, because they couldn't tell him the dream. Vic, Cynthia?
It shows his bravery, Daniel's bravery. Here, people are being chopped off, yet he had the bravery and courage to actually go before the king to ask him for time. That's some of what stood out.
Yes.
Was it?
There's more going on than that, but there is bravery there, but not his own. So he does two things.
Right.
First, he understands they're about to kill me and my boys. Like, what, because of a dream. So, but he doesn't depend on himself though, because he does something very, very important that I'm gonna pull out. But I want to hear from Charles first. Go ahead, brother. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah, it's crazy how you just said that. I was just thinking about how in real life, people that's how people are. They get mad at they own, and then they want to get mad at the people around them too. Put you in it. I ain't got nothing to do with this. But also, it also reminds me of this brother I was listening to last night. He said something that I never thought about it like that. He was like, when I see this, y'all gave a word. Y'all gives a word, and this is his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So ain't no need to get puffed up, because this is wisdom and his spirit, his word, he gives the revelation, not you. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm getting out of this, he went to Yahuwah for the answer, like you said. And Yah gave him the revelation of his word and what that man's dream was, to show that he is Yahuwah and he is the one in control of everything, to reveal to the world him and his people, or his might and his glory. So that's kind of what I got.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Absolutely. So it's all like we talked about brother Al talked about earlier, the chess pieces. Well, he said orchestrating, but same thing, orchestrating the chessboard, orchestrating a symphony. Every note, from the flute, from the violin, from the clarinet to the sax, all of those things, the trombone, the symphony, the timpani, all of those things are going somewhere. It's for you to understand something, the composition. Yah is drawing them to see something clearly. But I like what Sister Cynthia started to bring out, because look what Daniel does. Verse 16, he says, so Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, right? So he's also playing for his life here, that he might tell the king the interpretation, right? Give me some time to think about this. But he doesn't just go think about it. What does he do? Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies of who? Elohim of the heavens concerning the secret. I'm going to go to Yah so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So, you know, I'm not trying to die over this, like Brother Charles said, like this don't got nothing to do with us. Like you want to kill me because you woke up in a cold sweat? Come on, man. You know, Yah, what's this about? Right? They gathered together and they sought the counsel of Yah. Right? You got to know who to go to. Right? Remember in Isaiah 30, he says, you seek counsel, but not of me. You know, to those who can't profit you. That's what Israel was doing, going back to Egypt to their princes. And he's like, I'm right here. Like, why are you going? Why are you going over there? And I'm right here. I'm begging you to come to me. I'm begging you to seek me. What does it say in Matthew 18:19? Somebody read that for me. Matthew 18:19. Who's got it? All right, Brother Al. Matthew 18:19.
Praise Yah. Again, I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything, that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven.
2 or 3 come together, seek Yah in unison for the same thing, according to his will. Like you know, it's not just ask for anything, it's ask for anything according to his will. Why does he say that? Why does it have to be according to his will? Because when it's according to his will, we see the things he sees. We hear the things he hears. We want and desire the things he desires. And when we ask him, he can't refuse to give it to us. That's what he tells us to do. So we see Daniel do that exact same thing right here. He's not dependent on his own understanding. He didn't say, yo, let me go think about this for a minute. He said, give me some time, went straight to his boys and said, yo, we're going to go to Yah. We're going to figure this thing out. We're going to live a little bit longer. And we're going to give the king what he needs and he can stop killing people. Go ahead, Brother Charles.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just want to get this verse real quick. What's so funny? Anyway, so it says in Proverbs 3:32, it says, for the perverse person is an abomination to Yahuwah, but his secret counsel is with the upright. And then one more verse, and it says Amos 3:7. It may not have nothing to do with this, but surely Yahuwah Elohim does nothing unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets. So this is already stated, and the Father gave these words. And this was before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yah is looking to and fro for those who are bent towards him, for those who are requesting him. You know, the more we come to him, the more we seek his counsel, the more he gives us, and we become the light, right? So Daniel gets a prayer group together about these matters, right? Verse 19. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So we see this, I think it was Sister Lisa that pulled out dreams, visions of the night, as we looked at in the book of Job, chapter 33. So Daniel blessed the Elohim of heaven. He revealed these things to him. Daniel sought counsel from Yah in order to save his life, but also to bring light to the true and living Elohim. It's not just about Daniel. It's not just about the three boys, his crew. It's about Yah getting the glory and turning the mind of these people. It took 70 years, but they were eventually released. Go ahead, Brother Franz.
Yeah, that drew my attention to Genesis 18, where Yahuwah is in conversation with Abram regarding the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and how because of the righteousness of just 10, Yah said that he would not, after going from the 50 to 45 to 40 and all the way down, the righteousness of 10, he said he would not destroy the land. And to me, I see some parallels in this, in that maybe the righteousness of those four, Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, was enough for Yah to not allow that judgment of death that Nebuchadnezzar had ordered to pass. And I think the celebration of the mercy that Yah gives, I'm just picturing in my mind Daniel doing a praise dance right after getting that vision, because he knows that his life has been spared, and it's not his doing, and not only his life, but also the life of all of the wise men that would have otherwise had lost their lives. So it's just the rejoicing that comes from that moment. I can just picture Daniel, in my mind. I think he's young, but I think he's older in this than what I'm picturing as a young boy. But to me, it's just refreshing, and I can see how Yah is merciful. His judgment is righteousness, but he can always extend mercy, even if that means in the crosshairs, others may be saved because of it, because of the righteousness of a few. The many may be saved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, he would have been about 17 or 18, according to chronologically where we are, because this was after his 3 years of training. So if he was 14, he'd be 17 now. So yes, still young. And you said he did a dance. He probably did. Look at how he answered. He said, verse 20, Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of Elohim forever and ever." And this is quoting Psalm 113. And this part, "For wisdom and might are his," are from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32. So we see clearly that the words of Yah rest in his heart. Verse 21, and he changes the times and the seasons, right? This speaks of events in time and history, and that's what this dream is about, right? What's going to happen, which is now our history. Like, he changes the courses of those things. he removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding, right? The more we understand, the more knowledge that we have of Yah, the more we seek him. He reveals the deep and secret things. This means the inaccessible things, like the normal knowledge, everyday knowledge, book knowledge is not going to give you. Yah gives us knowledge and discernment that baffles the minds of scientists, right? We have to make sure that we understand these things. Darkness, those things that are hidden from sight. What does it say about those things? It says he reveals the deep secrets. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. He shines the light, and everything in darkness scatters. Verse 23, I thank you and praise you, O Elohim of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's demand. So here they seek Yah, and they find out exactly what they need to tell the king about his dream. So they'll be able to give him exactly what he wants, what he couldn't get from his wise men, the dream and the interpretation of the dream, what it means. So we'll stop there for today, and the next time we're together, we'll go into explaining the dream, and we'll see the outcome of what that does to these four young men. Yah positioning them by removing what was in the way of the king's ear, as we looked at earlier. So praise Yah. I'll go to Sister Marguerite, and then we'll close.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, what I noticed as well too was just how Abba was using, his dream through this mighty king, the ruler of the world at that time, and how through that whole process of giving him the dream and then having Yah's people, Daniel and Azariah and Mishael and Hananiah, that follow Yah, that it's just revealing, it just gave this example and illustration and reality of his existence, of his truth, that was the power, that's where all the power and the truth is, and how it was just an opportunity back then to just show the world who he is. And that was just so beautiful too. So not only was he like saving his sons and showing prophecy of what was going to happen, but just that everyone that was witnessing what was going on, like the main thing that was going on in the world at that time, the most visible thing was just revealing Abba's reality and power and truth to everyone, and that so many souls must have just been turned at that time to realize that he is the truth and the way. Praise Yah.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that this portion from verse 4 of chapter 2 all the way to chapter 7 verse 28, we see, it's written in Aramaic. So because of that, this was to be clearly understood by not just the Hebrews, but by the Babylonians too, striking down those who relied on the idols that they trusted in, showing that they couldn't give, Nebuchadnezzar any clarification, any understanding, any interpretation. The supernatural, devices that they used weren't working. The electric was off or something, maybe they were asleep, like Elijah said. But when Yah's men stepped forward and sought him and pleaded with him, cried out to him, he answered. So let that be a reminder to us of where, not only where we seek our counsel from, but that we need to be in a regular conversation with Yah. We need to be talking to him regularly so that he can reveal things to us. You find yourself in a situation that the world can't see their way around. You got to go to people that trust in him too for counsel. You have to go to Yah for yourself as well and say, reveal it to me, whether it's through you directly, through your word, or through someone else that you give word to. So many situations in our life, we get the opportunity to do that. Like, we have the creator of the universe. Why wouldn't we go to him when he says, I promise a relationship? So let this be a lesson to us, even in our darkest hour. They were about to be chopped up into pieces. And Daniel knew exactly what to do. So Praise Yah. This is all going somewhere, people. You know, we are on this journey to understand what happened to Israel because of their disobedience. And even in the midst of this, the deliverance, the provision that was there for them, and just how to answer the world's problems. So praise Yah. Thank you all for your participation today, and look forward to jumping back in next time we're together. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat, and a reminder to please keep the Cephas family in your prayers upon every remembrance as they're going through a difficult time with their son, Zacchaeus, right now. So praise Yah, and again, Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. We pray this video is helpful to your journey in the truth. Remember to be like the Bereans in Acts 17:11, who received the word with all readiness of mind, then searched the scriptures to see if what they heard was true. We have studies for the whole family, including children, every week. To learn more, visit assemblyofyahuwah.com. Use the Join tab to express interest in participating. Use the Give tab to help support biblical assembly needs. To be notified of new videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. Much love and shalom.